The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Hi, everybody. This is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
CWN.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia and Fury. Great to be with you all once again. And I get to introduce right here, right now, my co-host for the proceedings, the one and only Jack Wallace. How are you, Jack?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I always say the same thing every time you ask me how I am. Excited to be here, but no, I'm truly excited to be here tonight because this one's a very special one to me. It's a big one for the WZWA Network, and it's also going to be a big one for a community that I have been sort of keeping in touch with over the last couple of months, who have sort of cracked open Day of Reckoning and have made an amazing sort of community out of that again and brought the game back to life. And I want to give those guys a shout out, and Dark Elite Eric as well for helping us with a shit ton of this research and sending us in some fucking awesome questions. So we'll just want to shout them out, man. This is gonna be great.
Excellent. Like, honestly, we needed you guys to help out with this because there's just so much that you to ask, but you want to make sure you hit some stuff here in this interview that's important that maybe people might not know about. But anyway, enough about all of that. We have to introduce right here, right now, our very, very special guest. This is a man that played a big part in making a lot of teenage wrestling fans just dreams come true when it came to playing video games on the PlayStation, on the Nintendo. He is the one and the only Sanders Keel. How are you, my friend?
Hey, how's it going? Great to be here, man. Feeling good, and it's nice of you to have me on.
Excellent, bro. We are pumped to talk to you here tonight, or this morning for you as well, because obviously a lot of the things that you had been a part of, in your job over the years were obviously very important things to us. For me, I'm 34 years old, so some of these earlier games were a big part of my life, whereas some of the ones later on, a big part of my co-host Jack's life. So we're going to fire right into this, Sanders, and ask before we even get to any video game talk. Were you a wrestling fan growing up? And if so, what made you a fan?
Yeah, I was a big fan growing up. At that time, I started watching. I was living in Texas, so I was getting the WCCW and NWA. So I was following the Von Erichs and the Freebirds and that kind of whole angle. And I don't know, I just absolutely loved it. Me and my father would watch it. It came on like every weekend, all weekend. And it's pretty much all I did as a kid.
Right, excellent. So you get bitten by the bug that is wrestling, and it stays with you from then on. And, another bug that bit you had to be video games at some point. So could you tell me the console, the year, what were some of those like earliest video game memories that you had as a kid?
Well, it's kind of funny. My father never really played the games, but he always picked up the systems. I mean, we had Pong, we had, Odyssey, we had Intellivision. I mean, we had pretty much everything growing up. Intellivision, I guess, was the first system I really got addicted to. And I would stay home from school and play it and trade, cartridges of friends. And, I was told that I was never going anywhere playing these games. And, the kind of the typical thing you hear from a father that wants you to just go to school. But, and I mean, the arcade was huge back in, the early 80s. And I was always there spending lunch money, any coins I could get my hands on, basically laundry money, whatever.
That's awesome, bro. So like, speaking of the video games, it had to be the first time that you got the chance to play a wrestling video game. What would that game be?
Oh, well, it must have been in the arcade. It was probably either tag team wrestling or it might have been one of the WWF, maybe Royal Rumble or something like that, Superstars.
Yeah,
that was probably one of those. Oh, and then of course Pro Wrestling on NES. Was probably the first home game I played.
Excellent. Okay. So what would your opinion be on some of these early games, and at what point did you suddenly start to feel like, this is a field that I really want to get into?
Well, I'd say back then, no one really knew you could actually do this for a living. And, it wasn't even a thought really. It was just, I just wanted to play and get better at every game I played. And, just back then getting more points each time you played was the goal. It wasn't really even anything big, but I'd say the home consoles really changed the view on where the games could go. Obviously, now all of a sudden you had a goal to beat a game instead of just get a little bit better. You had to conquer it. I honestly didn't know about the industry, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was a tester. And she's like, "Oh, I'm going." She was going away to college. She's all, "Why don't you try to take over my job?" And I did. And that was kind of it. Just wow. I didn't even know she was doing that at the time. So
unbelievable. What a job.
Like overnight. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Jack, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm more curious, like, what was actually the first game that you ended up like working on or playtesting?
Testing. Wow. Well, it was 1994, and I think it was FIFA 95 on Game Boy without color, the original Game Boy, as well as Sequest DSV for Genesis and Super Nintendo, and bass fishing. We did a lot of bass fishing at the time, and those games were in-house, so it seemed like those games took like 2 years to make, the bass fishing games, and there was a lot of fishing and a lot of it was horrible. There was too much fishing going on those days.
I've sort of dreamed for years about having a job that would be like just getting paid to play video games, but is it sort of all like that, or is there like a lot more, like a different side to it that people wouldn't expect with playtesting with video games?
Oh yeah, it's pretty brutal. It's great. Sometimes, you get to do playthroughs and all that, but if you're, trying to track down a bug or something, you're going to be playing the same level like endlessly for like weeks, maybe.
Oh yeah. Oh no, man.
Find what's causing the issue, depending on what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's long hours too, which is great. Lots of overtime pay, in that job before you get on salary. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. You find a lot of camaraderie, and just kick it back with people and playing games all day and working on games, are going to come out. And this is great, man. You just throw down tons of soda and let's stay up all night playing these games.
No, man,
so it is a great career. It's definitely changed since my time. It's way more technical now. There's much better test plans and much more organized. But I think it's a great field to get into. But unfortunately, like other jobs now, they're looking for some kind of background. Back then, they just wanted someone that was good at gaming, that could get through and find the issues. Now it's like computer science background helps, even for testing, which is crazy.
So sort of moving over. So what we wanted to do for this interview is sort of go by game, talking about your role in sort of the major games that have shaped our childhoods, and even now with this channel that we do now, because, well, what do we do other than these interviews? We're playing a shit ton of old wrestling games, essentially. Like these games are still, coming to life on our channel all the time. So we did want to go through them all, starting off with WCW versus the World. Now, did you have a role in WCW versus the World at all?
More a review and decision-making process on that. At the time, I had just started in production, and I was kind of thrown the game to look at. We were working on Nitro way before my time. That game took forever to make. There was a lot of problems, and obviously it didn't come out very well. But they handed me the Japanese virtual pro wrestling on PlayStation, and I took a look at it. They're like, lock yourself in the room, play it for a week. Let us know what you think. Is it worth, checking out these developers? And I mean, I made up my mind within, 20 minutes. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was nothing like the arcade games and button mashing. You saw there was very set, system, kind of like chess almost, and some of the moves we saw and the graphics, even at the time, they look funny now, but they're really ahead of its time. And I mean, I got obsessed with the game. I went home and played it, So that's about my role in that, was just reviewing it and ultimately deciding, we're going to go with this developer.
Going to like sort of back to Virtual Pro Wrestling one, was this the same games that was sort of used, or that SmackDown ended up using as sort of a template or a frame per se?
Not at
foundation?
all.
No?
Virtual Pro Wrestling was the developer. AKI at the time, they were named the Man Breeze, which is a strange name, but they ended up doing the N64 games. So at this time they were doing PlayStation, and at one point they decided they didn't want to do PlayStation any longer, and they wanted to do N64. So then we started searching for a different developer for PlayStation.
Yep. Right. Cool. Yeah. I was thinking of the one in my head. I think it was there's a Japanese game. I just can't remember the name of it. That might have been the one that's very similar. There's a lot of the same animations as well. SmackDown 2 would have inherited a lot of those animations.
Yes. That was a Tokan Red Student series.
Yep.
And that was Yuke's.
Yes.
Basically. They had their Japanese versions, and we decided to go with them. And at one point we were going to use, I think, their second game we were going to come out with right away, and then we ultimately scrapped that, and they just decided to build kind of a whole new thing on their own for SmackDown 1.
Right. Yeah. Nice. So what did you think of WCW versus the World as it's kind of a precursor to World Tour?
I thought it was a great game, and I didn't see anything that was touching it at the time in terms of gameplay and graphics and where it was going to go. And, if that was just the beginning, I knew that we had to jump on board, because, I mean, everything was set. They obviously understood wrestling way more than other developers, and what it needed as far as the gameplay elements. You're not supposed to just bash buttons and just throw 100 punches. It's not a fighting game. It's a whole different entity. And I saw that really early, and we jumped on board as fast as we could.
Awesome, man. Over to you, Carl.
Yeah, cool, man. Look, at one stage later on, I will bring up Nitro and Thunder, but I kind of wanted to get into the 64 games here because obviously WCW NWO World Tour proved to be one of the biggest hits. Awarded Fighting Game of the Year by the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, Player's Choice status with over 1 million copies sold, and it eventually sold over 1.3 million copies in the US, making the second best-selling wrestling game for the Nintendo 64, et cetera, et cetera. What was the approach to this game? As it really felt like it revolutionized like the wrestling video game from what me and my friends found to be very difficult with games from like Warzone and Attitude. For us, Attitude and Warzone at the time, we didn't know any better. We thought that they were amazing, but then you play something like World Tour and it's just like your mind is blown. So what was the approach to this game?
Right. Well, at the time, AKI had been doing Virtual Pro Wrestling 1. They'd been working on it. And the plan was to utilize what they have and make, our first game on N64. And we would release at the same time their Japanese version and the WCW game. What the focus was the system itself taking advantage of the 4-player. That was something we felt was really important, and that, AKI was all over that. And just getting like the system down, because they were going from PlayStation to N64. So really it was a focus on the hardware and seeing what it could do. And we wanted to do a giant roster and all that. And we decided on simplifying a little bit more. Virtual Pro had like a ton of games or a ton of wrestlers that came in their game. But we wanted to concentrate on just kind of a small stable, which wasn't even that small. I think at the time it was probably one of the larger rosters for a wrestling game. But Yeah, it was definitely solidifying the 4-player mode and just the moves and everything, just get a nice base down. And we were still unsure about the license, if it was going to sell. If I remember correctly, it didn't come out too long after Virtual or WCW versus the World on PlayStation. So at the time, we were just starting to see sales. We still weren't sure, but obviously it did well. I mean, we couldn't be happier. We were in shock almost, by the numbers. So we knew we had something, and it's like, oh, let's take the next step on the next game.
It's amazing, bro. And I already said this to you in a message before, but like a game like this was such a cherished childhood teenager memory for me and my friends. You're having a slumber party. You go get some, hire out some pay-per-views on DVD or VHS from Blockbuster. You come back, you fire up World Tour. You play this thing for hours on end. It's I don't know. Are you aware that something like this is within like the fabric of so many teenagers growing up as wrestling fans? Even people that weren't wrestling fans would play this game with their friends and would eventually become wrestling fans. When you look back, do you realize how much of an effect that this ended up having on so many people?
Yeah, I mean, I still hear about it. It's pretty crazy, especially recently. There seems to be a surge of, retro games and getting back into and buying the old systems. And but yeah, I mean, it was always there. And I think, that was the whole thing with the friends having a party. And the great part was you had GoldenEye, you had Mario Kart, and that game was right there too. And it was a shock to us. And we felt that, that we could do better. And I think we did later on, but that was a pretty amazing game at the time. And like you said, we won an award for it. And I had one of those trophies. I think it's sitting in a garage somewhere, but yeah, that was amazing. Very fun time for sure.
Absolutely, bro. And that what you just say there rings so true. These slumber parties, you'd fire up Mario Kart, you'd fire up multiplayer GoldenEye, you'd fire up Revenge or World Tour. It's just like so important that I brought that up, and how like it's just such a big part of the activities you get up to, as a wrestling fan with all of your friends back in the day. I wanted to bring it over to Revenge now, not to downplay a World Tour too much, but I have so many questions about Revenge because this was my favorite game. What was the decision behind the name of it initially being WCW NWA Live, but then changing it to Revenge? What was the reason for that?
Right. We wanted to play on kind of the angle of the WCW getting back at the NWO and things like that. And we didn't want to really go with pay-per-view or anything like that at the time. And we were kind of just, I think maybe it was a last-minute decision, honestly. It was one of those things where we kind of toyed with names, and Live was like, I don't know if we like Live, and I don't know, Revenge, let's do that. And I mean, we were fueled at the time as well by Acclaim's games too. And I remember it was kind of personal. I took it kind of personal against Acclaim, and I'm like, oh, we got to smash this game. And I remember the first time I saw the new graphics for Revenge, we had been playing the game with like the old models from World Tour. And then, it took forever. They didn't want to show us. We're like, we got to see something. We have to see something. And we finally got a copy. Back then it was like all through the mail, snail mail. And, we got the copy and fired it up. And I'm like, oh, man, this is great, And I'm like, okay, I believe Warzone came out. I picked up copy and played 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm not even worried. No. At the time, we didn't know what they were going to do. We didn't know if the game was going to be great or what it was going to be. And then, it was good, but we just felt that we had the winner right there. And it was crazy. There was all kinds of things that we had planned for that we didn't know was going to make it in or not, and it made it or it didn't make it. But it was a really tight deadline. I remember that, and that was my first trip to Japan as well. Just trying to finish up that game. I went over there the last 6 weeks and just sat in a chair with the designer. We went through, removed stuff, added stuff, and named everything. Everything needed translations and everything. So, I mean, that's still maybe my favorite of all the games, because just the experience that we went through with that, and it was kind of an emotional roller coaster, especially with the Acclaim thing going on. I think I did some interviews and I smack talked them a bit, even like I was like getting in a character or something, and putting their game down. I had to apologize later to Mike Archer. He was a producer of that game. I met him later on. He started working at WWF, so met him then, and that was kind of funny. We both kind of laughed at it, but yeah, I mean that was a great game and probably my favorite, of the WCW games at least.
Excellent, excellent. Awesome. I've got a whole bunch of random questions here about Revenge. Sure. So, in Revenge, you have your NWO, you have your, Raven's Flock, you have the WCW guys, but there's a bunch of random characters in there. I know that they're based off some Japanese professional wrestlers, but there's one particular performer in the game called Jekyll. Is that based off you and your nickname? Yeah, it was. I mean, it was awesome. The moves weren't anything, but we were just naming them, and we just named it that. It was, nothing really to do with me other than the name at the time. But yeah, and that was the thing. We really wanted to keep all those kind of characters in, but we had to change them quite a bit. But that was a thing too. THQ was like, I don't get it. Why do we want all these guys in there? Blah blah blah. WCW was kind of the same too. They didn't care. They just wondered why. And I'm like, well, these are, kind of challengers from around the globe, and they'll be second to your roster, but they have all these different moves people haven't seen before, like obviously lucha style and Japanese strong style and everything like that. So we wanted to really keep those. So I really pushed for that, and we ended up keeping on.
Nice, man. I love those sort of characters.
Awesome. Like Jekyll, his moveset is incredible, and you can just decimate your opponents with him. And I'm just going to fanboy out here for a little bit, but this is why I liked having these random characters in there, because I loved beating the ever living shit out of Date Ken and Ming Chi. I loved beating the crap out of them. It was, to me, just the most fun. And I remember seeing a comment on someone talking about World Tour, and they said that, them and their friends' favorite pastime was to beat the shit out of Powder Keg over and over again. So you never know. There's all these stories across the world of some of these characters being, targeted specifically by different kids around the world. So that's why I think they're really cool, because of these little stories that you hear here and there. But yes, I think that they were important to the game. Speaking of characters in the game, I know Wrath was supposed to be in the game, but he didn't end up. Why is that?
Yeah, that was because of a lawsuit, and I'm surprised there was a lot of issues with Glacier and all those guys in Mortal Kombat, and just lawsuits and rights, and it was like, that was just a big headache for WCW in general, not even just in the game, but I think just the characters and everything. I'm surprised they went on with those, but at that point they were like, you just can't use them, and we had them planned. I think we didn't remove them, we just kind of coated over them. But I think there's a way to access them still, I think. I'm not sure.
Apparently there is a way. I've never. I will find out one day, and we'll do a little special on the channel, Jack. But I'm sorry, Jack. Before I throw it back to you, I've got so many other questions here.
Go on.
I'm not trying to hog up the time here. Okay, the addition of managers in Revenge, was that a difficult process? Whose idea was that? And I liked it.
Yeah, it was something we wanted to do, but it was a question of what are they going to do? Do we make them like the normal wrestlers or not? And ultimately it was, let's have them just kind of chill by the ring and maybe cause interference or something like that every once in a while. and actually just be annoying, to the other player. So that was kind of it. We really wanted to include everybody, even a ref, but that proved to be a little bit more difficult at the time.
Right.
With AI, and where is he going to be, and is he always going to be in the way, or so that was something we didn't really go with. But the managers, they could be outside the ring and all that. So we definitely wanted everyone on the roster in the game at that time, and we didn't have a lot of dispute from WCW on what we did. Honestly, they were just great. I mean, later on, WWE, they had a lot of feedback all the time, and who could we use and who we can't, and who's going to be on the cover. WCW wasn't so much like that.
Right.
Is after the first couple of games, so they're like, do whatever.
Excellent. So you did bring up the referee situation there in the game. Mark Curtis is the cartoon referee. Well, why was Mark Curtis selected? Why not Nick Patrick? Why not Randy Anderson? Why him specifically? And whose idea was it to do a cartoon on the screen?
Right. Well, AKI kind of did that as well with their game. But at the time, I think when we were doing photo shoots and everything, he was just the guy around. He was a guy that was around, and like, oh, yeah, let's get him. And then when AKI saw the pictures, we're like, oh, yeah, let's go with him. And he was a really cool guy and all that. Rest in peace.
Absolutely, yeah.
That one time, and that was it. That was a shame. But, that, I believe, was just sort of the deal at that point. There was a lot of things like that just happened. It's like, oh, yeah, let's just do this. It wasn't really planned for, and then all of a sudden we had a chance to do something, so we did it.
Yeah,
right. Another thing in the game that it was a source of frustration for a lot of people out there, not because it was bad, but because it would be something you could utilize to annoy your friend. If you picked Sting or La Parka, they get to start the match with a weapon in their hand, and if you get them, you can just keep wailing on them until they're nearly knocked out. What was the idea behind letting those two start with a weapon in the match?
Well, they kind of came to the ring with it, so we were like, oh, okay, let's just add it in. But we didn't think it'd be that annoying, but yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, and trust me, I utilize that very
especially Sting.
Yeah. A few more little small questions here. I'm sure there's no big story behind all of these things, but they're just things that I had an interest in. Ric Flair obviously had some problems with the company at the time. Were you guys originally creating him for the game, but then when there was problems, you had to take him out? What was that situation like?
Yeah, that was like a last second thing. It was like a contract dispute or something between them, and there was a legal battle, and they're just like, yank him. I think they were fed up with him at the time, and it was kind of like the Wrath thing, but it seemed a little more quick. It was like, get him out of here. So we're like, okay.
Right, okay, interesting.
Like pull from like images and everything, like any kind of marketing. But like I said, pretty much those were the only things we ever had with them, really.
Right.
I think, yeah.
Jack and I have been excited to hear about this. This is like one of our favorite things about Revenge. It's the soundtrack.
Oh man.
Please talk to us about the process of this iconic soundtrack being put together and your thoughts on it. Every single song is so creative and brilliant. I don't have the names here. I know you had the names written down somewhere else, Jack. I don't have them on my thing here, but these guys, amazing stuff. Please, Sanders, indulge us.
Really, that wasn't much of us at all. The soundtrack, that was all Aki's in-house guy. I think he just rang out a bunch of stuff, and we're like, oh, that sounds cool. And that was the other thing. We wanted to have music in the game to give it more action, like a feel of action, as opposed to some game. We're like, oh, well, Street Fighter does that well, with the music. You get into it, it gets you excited, gets a little hyper. Let's just add to that. And I think they had the same feeling, and we just, I don't think we really had any comments about it. We're like, oh, sounds good. It was just that easy. It wasn't, Aki was really, really into their vision and like honestly, like almost everything about it, we were just into. So
yeah, it's an iconic soundtrack, and it's funny that you just have like such a like, oh yeah, that's cool, and it just ends up being such iconic music to so many people in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was just playing the game and it not being bothersome, and they're like, oh, that was pretty good. You know, it was like, yeah, just keep it the way it is type thing.
Yeah, like it's just sort of like an everyday
the
thing.
action.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's such like a that's what sort of the funniest thing about sort of what you would be about your job is just how exactly what you said, how just little and not really like what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not really like a big deal to you, but it ends up just being like a massive
we haven't stopped going on about it for like months at the moment.
Yeah,
we like the song Starcade is just like the best wrestling video game song I've ever heard, and we play it all the time.
Things like that we didn't really have an ego about. Like some companies, they have to have control of everything. We're just like, oh yeah, that's cool, keep it in. And it was the same with their weird intro. Their idea with the truck and everything, it was bizarre, but we're like, kind of like it. Keep it in.
Yeah, we were going to ask
at that
about
time,
the.
We didn't really have much time, so it was either going to be that or nothing at that time. So.
Yeah, we're going to ask about that idea. Yeah, we like the truck driver spotting Sting in the middle of the road there and freaking out. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it was a little bizarre, but.
Only a couple more before Jack. I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about WrestleMania 2000. I know that you've probably mentioned this before in other interviews, but what was the story behind Raven being on the Revenge cover? Because you know it really is an iconic cover.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge fan. Definitely, even way before then, I was into ECW, and I was a big fan of his there. So I was really excited when he showed up at WCW and they started doing this thing with the flock. I'm like, well, this game's kind of about factions, so I think we should have him on the cover. We had NWO, we had WCW represented. I'm like, they're kind of smaller, but let's put him on there. He had a good look, and I think it countered kind of like all the other guys where he was, kind of a fresh face for kids, especially. And I was just like, oh, let's get him on there. It's like, and how many times can you put the same guys on the cover? So,
so many.
I thought it was just cool. Let's add multiple characters and have them, represent different factions. And I thought that was really cool. And I mean, he was pretty stoked on it, I heard.
Yeah. And before I throw it to Jack, one last question about Revenge. Is there something that you wanted to maybe put in the game that you didn't get the chance to, or is there something about the game that you wish you could have changed?
I mean, I wish we could have had a little bit more time just to polish it a little bit. I think there's always been problems with the size of the characters and the N64 games and the way they match, if you want them bigger or smaller. And eventually we just started making them stand up. It's all the Undertaker and stuff later on. But things like that, just those are more of the regrets. Is like we had more time to polish. As far as getting more stuff in, we always wanted everything in, cage matches and just more match types and obviously backstage stuff. And, it's stuff we were able to address down the line. But yeah, we always wanted to put everything in the game that we could.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, enough with Revenge, Jack. Let's talk a bit about WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah. So I only just sort of realized this, especially like really recently. Like, why wasn't Stevie Richards in WrestleMania 2000? Because I noticed the Blue Meanie was, but no Stevie Richards. The Blue World Order wasn't complete.
I think maybe at the time that was a decision by WWF.
Right.
I also think maybe he was under full contract.
Right.
I'm not sure of the circumstances, but yeah, I mean, obviously we could have used him, definitely would have used him. And I like Stevie a lot on a personal level too. He's a good dude and definitely wanted to use him. And Blue Meanie, I think we just kind of squeaked in there.
Yeah.
We were doing all the photo shoots, and he was there that day. He's like, "Oh, I want to be in the game." I'm like, "Okay, let's get you."
Oh, good.
And we turned out being pretty good friends, after that. But yeah, I don't think it was a big decision. I think it was just some kind of circumstances, but we definitely would have used them at the time. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I did actually have a question in regards to Revenge, to do with that intro that we were going on about before. There was a there's a cool little, I don't know if it was an Easter egg or it was just something in there, but if you were to change like someone's default attire for any wrestler that would show up in the intro movie, the clothes would change. Now, how did that all work? Was that just was the intro sort of like I wouldn't even know, was it sort of played out live within the game just due to their attires, or?
Yeah, basically because it was the same graphics, it was the same models. There was no difference, so it just pulled whatever he had saved, I believe. It was something that I don't think we even really thought of, and then we noticed it and we're like, "Oh, cool."
It's so cool, yeah.
it was like a nice bonus that was a mistake or accident, but turned out that way.
Yeah, it's
It
super
was just
awesome.
pulling the characters from the memory.
Nice. No, that's fucking awesome, man.
Thanks for remembering that, Jack. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the, like, because I only sort of realized it tonight. I was watching a video. I was like, holy shit, like I haven't even noticed that myself before yet, but
Yeah.
Awesome feature, man. So we're back to WrestleMania 2000. Were there any plans, and I know this is probably, due to the timing, of course, but for Owen Hart or Goldust to be on the roster?
Yeah, we took photos of both of them. Actually we took photos of Owen maybe 2 weeks before the accident.
Oh.
And it was brutal. I mean, I just met the dude, a really nice guy. We got his costume and everything, and that happened. And we obviously knew we weren't going to be able to do that. But Goldust, I don't remember the reason, but we did a photo shoot with him, and it was like kind of just like, I think at the time maybe he was leaving or had a dispute. Like I mentioned, though, WWF they were definitely more like, oh yeah, use this guy, don't use this guy, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And they were a little bit more like secretive. Like we didn't find out a lot of stuff till the last second with WCW. We like on Versus World PlayStation, we had his images like 5 months before he was on TV or something like that, like the new Sting, and we're like, what the hell is this? So we knew that was going to be big before it was big, but they were way open where WWF was a little more secretive.
Right.
So at the time it was like, and the changing of their outfits and stuff like this, their new gimmick, and letting us know like with like no time, that was challenging. So we were always on the road. We were like every other show, it seemed like, which is cool. That was fun, but stressful.
Was there like sort of any chance the sort of like, so you were able to take pictures, you wouldn't obviously have used Owen Hart, say Goldust, and been able to sort of slide them into the core parts. So obviously you had like, say, Mean Street Posse, Gangrel, Dude Love, Headbangers, all as like, creator wrestler parts and stuff like that. Was that sort of a way that you were able to get around or sort of hide it from the WWF?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's lagging a fair bit here.
I think I lost. Oh, you're back.
No, there you go.
I lost you there for a minute.
I'll start the question over. So obviously you've got Mean Street Posse, Gangrel, Dude Love, Headbangers, all as creator wrestler parts. Were you able to sort of use the creator wrestler parts to sort of sneak guys into the game behind the WWF's back? Not as obviously any malicious intent, but there's just might be some people that you've taken photos of and the WWF doesn't want them in the game, so you might just want to slip them in under the rug through the creator wrestler. Was that how sort of all that worked?
We sort of did stuff like that. It was more, we changed it up a little bit too, so it wasn't exact. Like tattoos and stuff, we tried to like hide a little bit and just make them a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, if that was a whole debate. It's like, well, what if we put the parts in? It's like, well, it's the user creating them. That's just a boot that really looks like this guy's boot. Something like that. But yeah, I mean, if we had time. It definitely wasn't a priority, but yeah, if we had time, we'd sneak stuff like that in. I mean, there was just people that all they did was do creator wrestlers. So
yeah,
it was eventually going to get in somehow.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, we weren't too worried about the repercussions at that point.
So Carl's got a little note on here that just that I actually I didn't even know was a thing. About the Inferno match on WrestleMania 2000. Can you explain that for me, Carl?
I read online that someone believes that there's a way of getting the Inferno match to work in the game. I just wanted to clear it up, that the person might be lying a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Never heard of that in my life either. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, there was a post I saw online, and they were like, yeah, it's like
possible. I mean, you know what? I can't remember it, but it's possible that he'd been working on it or something. But it might have been one of those things where it was like a straight no from WWF, and so we just shut it down.
It would have been so awesome though. I'll throw it back to you, Carl, for the next game. I think we'll go halvesies on this one.
Yeah, well, how about I'll do 5, you do 5, because there's a few here for No Mercy.
Oh man, that's yeah.
Okay, well, just to start off with Sanders, probably the one thing everyone remembers so much about No Mercy is dig dog. It's just every time we play it on our channel, I'm always just barking it out there. Where did like the music for this come from? Especially this, because it's such a one of a kind thing.
Yeah, it was another one. It was the same guy making the music, and we heard this, and we all kind of laughed about it. And we're like, God, that's terrible. And then the more we just played around with it, we're like, just leave it in. I think it was Road Dogg, right? Like a Road Dogg sample or something,
really?
Just going over and over and over.
And
yeah, it was like, I don't know. I think after a while, I just didn't realize it was even there. But then every once in a while, I would start, like if I'm up late, like creating something or something like that. It's, you just start to sing it. It was goofy. I don't know. It was goofy, but it was fun. So we just kind of left it in there.
It's so iconic.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing that we wanted to bring up here recently on our channel, poor Jack here had to do a European Championship mode. We created Jerry Flynn from WCW, and early on we found that we kept on getting put into handicap matches with X-Pac and Road Dogg, and then a few others later down the line. For Jack's sake, we want to ask, what the hell is with the handicap matches in season mode being so difficult? Because there was one night where I think, Jack, you were at it for about 4 hours trying to get through this one thing to win the Euro title. Why were handicap matches so difficult? Why weren't they tag format, Sanders? Why were they tornado?
No, I think that was maybe a mode that we didn't concentrate on as much. And we kind of made it. And I think that, the tester was really damn good at the game. That's for sure, too.
Oh.
Right.
So I played it a lot. I mean, I think a lot of us played it so much we didn't really have a problem with it. But later look back and, yeah, it's a little hard. I think that was actually true with not just these games, but a lot of past THQ games, especially the NES games, are impossible. And that's because like some of the staff was like really good at some of these games that they were the only one that could really beat them and send the video for submission. But yeah, I think at that point in time, companies kind of put out kind of more challenging stuff than they do these days. But that's sorry about that.
It was tough, man. But we got there in the end.
It was such a source of enjoyment for me because Jack was just getting swarmed by X-Pac and Road Dogg. He couldn't do anything. As soon as he did something to one of them, he just got nailed by the other. So thank you. For me, you apologize to Jack. I'm going to thank you for that. A couple more before I throw it to Jack. Did the Attitude Meter, did that name change come from the WWF?
No, we just changed it. We're like, oh, what makes sense? Let's do that. We didn't really have a name for it. And WCW, so we just kept Spirit, which is what they had in their game. And then Attitude, it was like, oh yeah, let's do that. That just fits the brand.
Yeah, definitely.
And, we just tried to do small things like that where we could. It wasn't really. They didn't do a lot of suggesting. They were more concerned about the roster and the looks and everything. And
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, bro. A couple more before I throw it to Jack.
Yeah, I'm losing you again.
You losing us again? You got us? You're right.
I got you right now. Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool. I think every now and then it just does something weird. Next question. Did anyone crack down on color palette changes around No Mercy? It seems to have actual alternative outfits rather than the unused purple Viscera outfit, for instance.
Right. No, there wasn't any feedback from WWF at all. So, yeah, I believe that's when we started. I think we had 4 outfits for each guy.
Yeah.
And some of them we had better throwbacks than others. Obviously, some of them we didn't really have. We were like, "Oh, what do we do for this guy?" Or something like that. And we didn't really have many options. But we tried to do some cool gimmick from the past or something like that, and they were cool with that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. And before I throw it to Jack, I've got one more question written down here. Do you have any info about WWF Backlash for the Nintendo 64, a supposed No Mercy sequel?
I'm sorry. I totally lost that question.
That's okay, bro. No worries.
One more time.
Do you have any info about a game known as WWF Backlash for the Nintendo 64, which was an apparent sequel to No Mercy?
Nope. No, we after No Mercy, that was pretty much it. We wanted to continue, and EA jumped in and grabbed the developer and started working on Def Jam. I believe is what they immediately went into. We didn't know what we were going to do at that time, and the systems were changing again, so we're just going with whatever. We had the Xbox coming up, and we had GameCube.
Oh gosh, of course, yeah.
Nightmare, the whole scenario with the GameCube. But yeah, at the time we wanted to do another, and then that was just kind of it. EA did what they do. That's what they did with WCW. They grabbed that license, and then we just happened to jump on WWF. It was like free. Like right at the moment we jumped off, and we jumped on that. And then they grabbed AKI. So, it's just kind of how the game business worked back then. And EA was definitely kind of the type to try to steal, for Born to You. And they did. So good for them. But, they didn't really have a lot of success with wrestling games. So, ha.
And so there we go, everyone out there who believes this rumor about WWF Backlash. We've got the guy right here that was in the thick of it. He says that he has no clue about that. So if he says so, forget about it. It's done. Jack, over to you.
Cool. Great one here for your friend Bonacar. Why does No Mercy have half entrances, but Revenge obviously has? I guess we can call them. We can pass them as full entrances.
Yeah.
Why didn't?
So why did No Mercy only have half entrances, whereas sort of Revenge had the full entrances? So we could pass them as.
I couldn't tell you. It might have been a thing with memory.
Yep.
Could have been. I think our roster was quite a bit bigger, I believe, and we definitely were moving into more moves and match types. And I think, we were always pushing the boundary on the memory, that's for sure. And at one point we moved into, the larger cart, and with the battery, we were trying everything, but I think we just started hitting limits basically.
Yeah. So with that sort of, we're going to go into a very sort of infamous bug with No Mercy, the infamous Data 2500 bug. I don't know if that's the name for it, but I know that there is a created wrestler, a wrestler called Data 2500 who does sometimes come out. He's not playable. He's got no moves, no taunts. They all take the animation of a basic chop. What was the feeling when you found out, like, you've had the game released now, and then you sort of getting the feedback of this just game breaking bug with people's memory and data has been wiped? Like, how was that whole
I'm not
thing?
sure about the character thing, but yeah, I think it was with the battery. and that was actually Nintendo. That was like
Right.
the dysfunctional batteries in those carts.
Yep.
And then later on, we, used different ones. But yeah, at the time, there was a problem with that. I remember that we were freaking out, like, why didn't QA catch this? Blah, blah, blah. And we found out it wasn't our side. So pretty happy about that. At the same time, disappointed that those were out there. Yeah, it was a manufacturing flaw, I guess. I was like going crazy. I'm like, oh God, we're all gonna get fired, or something like that, or lose a license, or we didn't know what the hell was going on. And yeah, we found out it was just manufactured. It was a run of carts that had the problem with the memory. Yeah,
right.
It was terrible.
Yeah, man.
Especially after pushing for the internal memory, everyone wanted to do that, So that was about what that was. I mean, yeah, it was definitely something really sucky we were all worried about, but at the end of the day, we're like, well, we couldn't really do anything about it on our end.
I mean, yeah, you guys ended up getting it fixed out there and a working cartridge and everything like that. So everyone I'm pretty sure you guys also, Nintendo had a bunch of working cartridges they just had to start just getting people to send in the faulty ones and then trade them back in. So it would have been such a headache for Nintendo, but probably well deserved. But I'm surprised you didn't know about this character. I only actually found out about it watching a video a couple months ago. It's very, very odd. It's kind of creepy in a way. This is one of the questions that we had sent in. So it was sort of described as a placeholder character, and there was also other placeholder characters in other games like the Silver Dummy in Mania 2000 and Bold Barber in Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. Do you guys create these sort of wrestlers, or were they just something that the AI randomly generates for placeholders? I'm not too sure the context of the Silver Dummy and Bold Barber, if they were unlockable characters or if they were just...
I actually have no idea what you're talking about, honestly.
No.
I thought you were talking about the dummies and the creator wrestler.
Right,
but like placeholder, I'm not sure what that's about.
No, I've got... Sorry about that. Whoever sent us that question in, couldn't help you there. So I do have a couple of other ones here. This is sort of to do with the Game Boy Color storyline playthrough. I'm not too sure if you had too much of a involvement in writing or doing much of the process with the championship mode storylines. But there was one that I found really interesting that didn't make it into the final version. Well, it did if you can get a Game Shark code and all that stuff. But players have been able to tap into the Game Boy Color storyline where the story starts out with you being introduced by The Rock, introduces your player character as a fresh face. Triple H and Stephanie interrupt and introduce the plot, and you have to win a series of matches before facing Triple H for the world title, yada, yada, yada. Just the typical created wrestler storyline. So this mode was fully written and seems to take advantage of the fact that it can tell a unique story without involving the player character. In every championship mode, the opposite is the case. And why did this unique story never make it into the final build?
I honestly couldn't tell you because I didn't work on the game.
Yeah.
I believe that was my assistant producer produced that one. Was that the side scrolling game? Yeah, I didn't work on that.
No, I think this was sort of led to something to do where you could actually end up having when you win the championship, you'd have the Game Boy Color character now be playable on the No Mercy card. That rings a bell at all?
We were thinking about stuff like that, but I don't think we ever did that.
No. I've got a couple more here as well. We're just going to go to the sort of the credits. What was the sort of the idea behind Mick Foley sort of closing out the No Mercy credits there? I thought that was an awesome touch.
I think it was just another one of those things where it's like, they had this idea and we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And of course, just, the message at the end of the No Mercy credits, I think that's something that lacks a lot these days from by a lot of, games with the credits. It doesn't feel like that with those credits. It felt like you guys were sending the players a message, if you know what I mean. It felt like you guys were sort of connecting with the audience at the end and saying thank you. And I felt like, as I saw that for the first time after I'd been through hell with the handicap match, and it made me feel better. So I did want to just take the time to say thank you for putting the nice message in and sort of connecting with the audience at the end of No Mercy. But I think that'll be it for No Mercy on this one, Carl. So we'll move forward.
Actually, I just want to ask one more question about No Mercy. I just kind of sprang to mind then. in the story mode, Big Show was supposed to be a big part of one of the story modes, but he's replaced by Stevie Richards, which a lot of people, especially my friend Daniel Bonner, was confused by. Why was Stevie put in there for Big Show? Was this to make up for the fact that he was in WrestleMania 2000?
It could have been this thing with Big Show. It could have been a WWF thing. I know we had problems with him a couple times in the past. I think it was contract status maybe, or they're pissed at him. I don't know. It seemed we got a lot of those little things here and there.
Right.
And I think, I don't know why Stevie Richards, I don't even really remember that, but I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Fair enough, bro. Okay, but before I end up throwing it back to Jack, a few questions about Nitro. I know we're heading back in time from where we are in the timeline here. What were the biggest challenges about producing and being a part of Nitro and the experience working with Inland Productions?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was coming on when there was no return. And really, I had not played the game up until I got on the game, and I kind of played the game. I was like, ouch. There's got to be more grappling. There's got to be more of this and that. And that was before really playing with, virtual pro wrestling. And then once we saw that, it's like, oh no, I didn't even want to put it out, honestly. And it was difficult getting them to work on the things we wanted them to work on. And they would just start making all these creative characters. We're like, no, we need more movesets. And it was just, I don't know. I think the relationship was not the greatest when I came on there. There was a different producer, and I think they went through a couple. And really just no one had a vision of wrestling, honestly. I don't think anyone really knew what it was, or thought they knew what it was about. It seemed like they were trying to do a fighting game. So there was a lot of problems, just from the core. And, I think they had kind of a deal with them, and they couldn't get rid of them. And it was a mess. That's all I remember. And, the best part being the videos, that's just crazy, And then with Thunder, it was kind of like, oh, well, let's put out another quick one. and then the relationship kind of thing. I think that was about it.
Right, yeah, because I kind of felt like there wasn't really much of a change between Nitro and Thunder. And, you're comparing them to the 64 games, which are so in-depth and winning awards and all this stuff. But then in the PlayStation side of things, it's like it feels like that the wrestling games can't get it together to compete with those 64 games. Yeah,
and the team was really small too. I remember that when I met him, I was shocked. It was like maybe 6 people or something like that. The AKI team was pretty huge. And it just didn't seem, in the past they worked on some, I believe, Super Nintendo games. We put out one called Mohawk and Headphone Jack, and that was them under a different name. So they had different names going on with their studios as well. But yeah, I just don't think they were the most talented or qualified for doing a wrestling game. And at that time, I don't think there were many that could do what AKI did. Those guys were fans, that breathed it. So, and it's very apparent where these guys, I don't think they really even watched it. They watched maybe what we sent them. And that was about it.
Right. Interesting. Well, I'm glad to have got a bit of insight there. And even though there were a lot of problems with Nitro and Thunder, still me and my friends would play that game when we had our slumber parties. And despite it being difficult to play, it didn't seem to matter to us. So back over to you, Jack.
Sure. Well, we're going to move straight forward down to SmackDown 1 and 2 now, given we are the PS1 sort of era. So we've got a couple of little just fun questions here, but there was one that is always sort of puzzled me before I do want to move full on into the PS1. This is just regarding the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era. Now, how much of sharing of tech was there between the teams? I'm not too sure if you would know too much about this, but it always seemed odd to have 3 different teams working on the same license, each with their own textures, animations, and such. Was there ever a point where THQ was planning to switch to just porting SmackDown to the 3 platforms instead?
Well, honestly, no, because these developers were the ones we wanted to stick with, and they didn't want to work on other systems.
Yeah.
So it was like, if we had to do that, we would have to, kind of get rid of them all.
Yeah.
We're like
yeah,
not willing
right.
to do that. There's no way we were getting rid of AKI and we weren't going to get rid of Yuke's. And that's just the way it was going to go.
Yeah.
So we just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
No way.
Fair enough. I think as well, like having, options. So it's always good having options, like, more wrestling games are better, in my opinion. I've always wanted to know sort of the story behind the battle bars in SmackDown 2. And in the season mode there, when you sort of wanted to skip a match, I'm not too sure you have much of a say or much knowledge in that one either. But the battle bars have always puzzled me a little bit, the decision behind that.
Oh, you're gonna have to refresh me on that.
So when you're in season mode, you're gonna skip, a match that you're not in on the show, and sort of you got the two characters come up with the little bars underneath, and you got to watch them sort of battle each other, and whoever sort of the first health bar to go down, obviously is the loser, and it's just for the random the AI matches.
Yeah, that was just kind of a random thing.
Yeah,
that Ukes came up with, and we're like, okay. I thought you were referring to something different, but yeah, like the skip the match thing.
Yeah, it's sort of an infamous sort of thing with SmackDown too that I know a lot of people have spoken about for years, and it's the one thing I almost remember the most about SmackDown too, is it's just so different from anything else that was being included. It's completely random.
Oh yeah, I think it was just kind of a trivial thing for us. It's like, okay,
it's because it's kind of frustrating, right, Jack? Like you want to get to your next match, but you got to keep on. Oh, great, Viscera versus Gangrel. Who's going to win? Okay, let's get to the next one. Cool. It's the New Age Outlaws against the Dudley Boys with Tori as a special guest referee. Okay, cool. Next one.
I know, right? It's just, but I think that's what makes it so the season mode so memorable, because it's just its little charms, like the Michael Cole shrug, and the need to have random and often irrelevant cutscenes. Speaking of which, I would love to know why you guys included that. I do enjoy knowing all the background stuff as it's happening, but it was very, very random and very irrelevant for the most part.
Yeah, that was more of an idea, like, let's try to incorporate more of the TV stuff. And at that point, we didn't really have a lot of it, so I think it was just kind of overdone, maybe a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was just more like trying to add what was going on, like TV, and some of it was a little not needed.
I feel like it brings the season mode to life, personally.
Jack,
I feel like it did a lot.
Jack, I feel like we can't skim past this. The Michael Cole shrug every time he interviews someone. At the end of it, he goes, "We're always like, what are you so confused about?" Was there anything behind that, or did you go? You guys trying to say you felt like he was clueless, or
like a "there you have it" thing? Yeah, I think there was a clip that we looked at, and they just found it funny and just went with it.
Right. So he's kind of saying like, "There you have it, everyone." But to us, he's like going, "Huh? Well, I don't know."
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, it's confusing without more language involved.
No, if there's a clip of that, like if there's an actual Michael Cole clip, we've got to hunt that down now.
We have to.
I will move on to Just Bring It. I think a lot of the sort of the stuff you already spoke about in Nitro were sort of cover a lot of what you would have already done with SmackDown 1 and 2 as well. Sort of SmackDown Just Bring It. How much involvement did you have with this? And did you have any, like, what was the process like of moving from PS1 hardware to PS2? I know you weren't developing, but sort of with the team. Sorry.
We lose you for a second there?
Yeah, I thought I lost you for a second there. Sorry.
Yeah, and I got a pop-up. It says internet unstable. Okay, I think it's back.
Yeah, we're all good.
We're good. All right. So I'll just restart the question. Do you sort of have any? So what was your involvement with SmackDown Just Bring It? And do you have any sort of a story of the process and challenges for the team when they were moving from PS1 hardware to PS2?
Yeah, starting over basically, and I remember at the time that that came out, there wasn't a lot of help from Sony as to where the PS2 was going. Dev kits, I think, were hard to get a hold of at the time. And yeah, it was. I think it was frustrating if I remember correctly, just getting it off the ground. Basically, I think it was a very slow start with a lot of questions about the hardware, and that seemed to happen every now and then. Say that, and the GameCube definitely was a tough one, and the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, the Dream. So did you? Speaking of the Dreamcast, I know that. Did you have any involvement in that WWF Royal Rumble arcade game as well?
That was actually just a port. That was actually an arcade game that they're putting out in Japan, and it was with Sega, and they're like Sega wanted to do the game, so I think we allowed them to do it if we could just put out a port of it. I think we got the port for free or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't a lot of involvement. That was pretty much a Sega game. It was like Sega directing Ukes, basically.
Yeah.
Jack, sorry, I have to chime in here again because I've just uncovered something. Okay. Someone very prominent in the video game industry is on with us right here, right now. And he just pronounced it Sega. And all these years, my friends keep saying it's Sega. It's Sega. Is that right?
Yeah.
I told you guys, it's Sega. Thank you, Sanders.
You're welcome.
It's obviously, we're talking about the sort of the challenges you guys have with the hardware, moving over all the questions. So you've got all of that now, but then you've also got like the pressure on you and the team. You guys have killed it with SmackDown 1 and 2. Was there a sort of a high expectation from the fans that felt like you need to deliver, given the high quality of the previous titles, as I just said? Now you're moving on to brand new hardware. The expectations might be even higher now. How was the pressure on you guys with all those factors?
Yeah, I think on that move, we didn't really think about the fans a whole lot because we were more worried about just getting anything out at that point. I think once we got over that hump with PlayStation 2 in the beginning, then we were more about the fans in that instance. Just trying to get the game solid and running. I think we were having a lot of problems. I remember we were way behind. And we caught up, but we didn't get to do nearly as much as we wanted to with that. Yeah, it felt kind of bare, actually, if I remember right.
Yeah. Was that so I'm guessing that sort of, leads into why the story mode was also so short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything was cut a little bit short. And we had a hard deadline, for the holidays and all that. And yeah, that was a difficult one.
Yeah. I do actually want to bring up something that's infamous for misleading fans, but I actually think it's awesome. That intro video, man. I wish there was more of that type of stuff in wrestling video games. Games that videos that aren't using the game's graphics, but it's just sort of more of an animation. Whose idea was this, and what was the process behind it? If you have any involvement in that?
Yeah, I think it was probably pitched, if I remember, by Ukes, because they were always looking for something to do with that, and I think it was just like, oh, that's great. We wanted to do something, but when you're limited, you just got to kind of find something to do, or not at all.
Yeah,
I think it was just enough to where, okay, yeah, we can use this.
No worries. Cool. Fair enough. Over to you, Carl.
No worries. Time now to talk a little bit about SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Again, same question as before. Your involvement in the game. This is one of the most favorite games that's out there.
Yeah, I think this was the last one I was fully on. And then the fifth one was in part of the design meetings, and maybe the first few months, and then that was it. Shut Your Mouth was a great game. I had a lot of fun with that. Definitely way bigger than anything I think we had taken on at the time as far as content and just getting all the bells and whistles in. I think we really put a huge effort in that game. And I just remember it just seemed like a very long development time, but it wasn't. It was like maybe 8 months or something like that. Something stupid, something ridiculous that you shouldn't even do. But yeah, it was a lot of work on Yuka's team, and it seemed like we were up 24 hours a day. Since they were in Japan, we're up all day and then up all night talking with them. So yeah, very awesome game. I think there was a lot of traveling involved with that one too, it seems like. And I remember there was a lot of marketing behind it too. So there was like a lot of marketing demands that we had to put up with, as well as the development. Like they were always having us go to events, and it's like, oh, I just want to sleep, type of thing. But yeah, that was getting towards the end of once we released that. I didn't have much longer at THQ.
Right.
Don't believe, yeah. And then I also had the Pride game I was working on, Pride Fighting Championship. And then Xbox is like, there was a lot going on. I just remember that the last like year and a half I was there.
Right.
It's pretty crazy.
We wanted to know about the process of writing this extensive 2-year-long season mode, and it's full of cutscenes. And we are so excited to play this through on Twitch someday. We really want to sink our teeth into it. Please tell me about that.
Well, I mean, that was a big collaboration. Basically, finding the storylines and Yuke's wanting to go with some storylines, and then writing the script and translating the script, and then after translating, adding the correct terms the correct way. So between Yuke's and another producer that I was working with, he was translating all this stuff, and then I would work with him with the way they talked and stuff. So that was very long and a very long process. I mean, felt like it was never going to be over. And just tons of Excel files. That's all I remember. Like, endless.
I just want to chime in here with a little bit I just remembered about this game, because I played this game so much as a kid. Why did none of the wrestlers have teeth? That's something I always noticed about this game. It's the one wrestling game where the wrestlers do not have teeth.
Right. I don't know why. I think that it was a thought, and then we just didn't even think about it. I think they did more talking than we expected them to. But yeah, it's a little bizarre. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I think it looked creepy too. Like, I think maybe we did try it, but we didn't like it. I can't recall why.
Excellent. Only a couple more here about this game, Sanders. Whose idea was it to enable jumping off the SmackDown fist, the Rebellion Tron, and the King of the Ring chair? These are iconic spots right here.
Things like those situations were definitely Yuke's, because it was like those were things where they kind of like, we talked about them doing big stuff like that. They're like, I don't know. And then later on, it was like, oh, we have it working. It's like, you didn't get some warning. It's kind of, that came up. They didn't really want to show us unless it was like done or something, Yeah. So they would surprise us with stuff like that. Aki was kind of the same. They didn't really want to show us anything unless it was kind of polished. So yeah, it's just stuff that made it, that surprised us. We're like, oh, great. Stuff we talked about, but it was kind of going to a dead end, and we knew we had a lot to do, and they just kind of put somebody on the side on it, Yeah.
Fair enough. And the last question on this game before we move on to the next one with Jack, were there any plans to incorporate blood in this title? It didn't come until the next installment, and Here Comes the Pain, but we've always wondered if it was something you guys didn't consider, or if it was unable to be done at the time.
Always WWE. It was always them.
Right, yeah.
With the blood. And it was it was just a battle. And I remember even the N64 games, is it going to be in? Is it? No, we can't have it in. And it's like stuff where you crack them open, they make the animation, but they don't have it,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It was always a battle of the blood. It was crazy. Like, you could do anything but the blood. You could do all the top, stuff with like breasts and all that, but you can't use blood. And those on TV. It's crazy.
Insane.
That was always a headache. And always a question every year. You can have blood. I don't know.
Now they've got 5 levels of fucking blood, man. It's crazy.
There you go.
Over to you, Jack.
Yeah, sure. So this one's the one I'm a little unsure about. So I'll just, same question as always. Your involvement in this is WWE Day of Reckoning. Did you have any involvement in this game? And if so, what was your role in this one?
Day of Reckoning, nope.
No, it's GameCube game. No. See, this is what we were discussing before. IMDb and all these other sites. Is
fucking shit, bro. No,
GameCube, I got involved in the early ones, and that was a nightmare because hardware was very problematic. Those little discs just memory and everything. And we couldn't do like full rosters at the time. And I remember Ukes wanting to do like a puzzle game, and we're like, no. And it was and at the time there was new management coming in at THQ, and they were starting to put another producer on the game, and I was like more of kind of like creative producer and watching over WWE stuff. And there was a lot of bad things going on, bad blood. That's when I was like, I'm getting out there soon.
Damn, bro.
And the same with Xbox, they started putting people on there because when you bring in new management from way up above, they kind of bring in their own team, and that's not something that's unusual, but it was kind of crazy they were going to do that on this game, or this, brand with such success leading up. And I think they heard them for a little bit. They did, the next producer, Corey, was actually came in to do like stuff with them, and I don't know how that panned out, but so yeah, I was kind of getting sour, and I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
But then they laid off like probably over half of production, just across the board, and just kind of installed their own people. So that was kind of crazy.
So was that for WrestleMania 18 and 19?
I believe 18 we did, and it was kind of we were both there, and then 19 I wasn't there for.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you sort of notice, like as you said, then like with the Nintendo 64 games, like you can tell which ones are AKI games. You can, straight away, even by looking at them.
Yeah.
And then when you're sort of moving over to WrestleMania 18 on the GameCube, you'd think, it being a Nintendo game, you'd think it would just be like another AKI wrestling game, but improved. Yeah. It's better. And
different team, and even if AKI did it, it'd still be problematic. It was hard. Yeah. It's just a challenging system, and I don't think it was very good at all.
Yeah.
And, I just couldn't do what the N64 did, which to me seems strange. To everybody at the time, it's like, really, we got to deal with this thing. Kind of a nightmare. And the GameCube thing, I just like started not wanting to work on it. And, the Xbox title I worked on, the first one, but I really was getting out of the mood on that too. And then I think the last game I finished was Pride, and then that was pretty much it.
Wow.
So, sort of how was that sort of exit from that industry? Like, what was the sort of what was your game plan moving out? Did you have a plan at all? Did you just want to leave and just take time yourself?
I didn't know what to do, and everyone was like, things are going down. It's like kind of knew things were coming, but don't quit, get your payout, don't quit. So I kind of did that and waited, and then after that was done, man, I stopped watching wrestling and MMA for like years. I was like done. I was kind of heartbroken. And then, but I continued. I was working on game design, doing some freelance with some people on a boxing game and another wrestling game that didn't pan out. And we were putting together a team to do a TNA game with 2K at the time, and Rockstar was like, no, they didn't understand why wrestling would make money, and we had AKI willing to make the game for us.
Man.
With like rafters and everything TNA was doing and all that. And it was crazy. I couldn't believe that they didn't want to do it. So that didn't pan out. And I eventually moved to New York and started working at a mobile game company. And did phone games for a while, and then we ended up doing iPhone and Android. And that's pretty much what I did for 10 years over there. And then now I'm kind of not in the game industry. Kind of got aged out a little bit. But I mean, there's stuff out there, but a lot of the companies are getting younger. Like startups, and either don't want someone more experienced than them coming in, or kind of the deal where they don't want to spend the money on it, or some, or there's the education. People want people that go to school for it now. So it's kind of crazy, but that's kind of where that's going.
Fair enough, man. No, it's
awkward.
No, man, it's it is a shame that you sort of did kill your love for wrestling and MMA, especially when you mentioned, you loved wrestling as a kid growing up, and that would suck for me so much if that if I was to get into video game development, and I'm a massive wrestling fan, so that'd be my two biggest, that's my two worlds coming together. And if I was to leave heartbroken by that, man, I'd be so lost. So good on you. Good on you for getting through
there's
that,
shows like this, it's been crazy lately. Like, been getting asked to do podcasts. There's been a couple of books. I was in this one, The History of WCW. It wasn't even about games. They asked me to be in the book, and I got like some interviews in that. And then the minds behind the game, they did a sports one, and I'm in there for a couple of games and chapters. So that was cool. So, I mean, these cool things get popped up. It's just it's kind of cool reliving it a little bit, remembering these things.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have questions about the games. I certainly have questions about the games I grew up on. So glad to be on and doing this stuff. So I appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Well, we do have a few final questions before we do close out the show with Carl's segment. So I did want to get your take on all the indie wrestling games popping up now on PC and console, like Virtual Basement's The Wrestling Code, Action Arcade Wrestling that just had a console release, Retromania, and Dickie's Empire. I could go on. There's so many coming out. The awesome new Ultra Violent game. What's your take on all of these? I mean, and I credit you for influencing a ton of these games as well. I don't think without your team, wrestling games would still be as prominent as they are today.
Well, thank you. And I think it's great that people are, working on these games. It's a lot easier to get the tools to create these games these days. A lot more people that want to work on them. A lot of people that know they can go to school to learn, these kinds of things. There's one game in particular, Pro Wrestling X on PC. And this guy, Dave Wisnowski, used to email me hate mail back in the day from, the N64 games. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. I told him, why don't you try making a game? And he started doing that. And then way back then. And later on, I emailed him after I was done with THQ, and he was shocked. I'm like, just seeing how you're doing all this stuff. And it's now out on Steam, which is crazy. It took like decades, but he's like, oh man, now I know it was hard work. But It's like, so you hear stuff like that, and it's great. It's like, I want everyone to create games, I think, there's a lot of them I need to play still. I played a few, and, they all got hard at least.
Yeah.
But, I'd like to see like much more bigger scale games from, some different companies. Not really into the 2K games and what they became. I just don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I guess there's a AEW game coming out. I haven't really read a whole lot about it, but I'd like to play that.
Yeah, man.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that's looking awesome. Like, that was part of my next question. Like, what did you think about that if you saw it? Now, Yuke's has been announced with working on it, and geta-san also made an appearance at the I can't remember which AEW games thing it was, but he was introduced by Kenny Omega, and they were talking about No Mercy and all the old games and that. So what did you think about all that? And also, do you still keep in touch with any of the old Yuke's crew, like geta-san and etc.?
I talked to some of them, like Facebook and stuff. We're friends.
Yeah.
But not on a constant basis, but check in every now and then, say hi. Same with some of the guys from hockey. Just friends, basically. I haven't really talked to them much about the game. I probably will at some point to see what they're up to. But I wish them best of luck. I don't know how it's gonna go. We'll see. It's a different kind of wrestling. See if they can change things a bit.
I hope they can
come up with something a little bit different than the same line that they've been doing a long time.
That's it.
I'd like to see that.
I would love to see it. I'm aching for this game to come out only because of like the bits of gameplay footage I've seen. It looks promising, but how many times have we seen promising gameplay footage? As gamers, we know not to at this point, not to get our hopes up. Carl, I'll give you the final few questions and finish off with 5-second frenzy.
Sure, Jack. You know what? I kind of thought of another question that we didn't have planned here, but this is something that I've been very passionate about over the last few years when talking about wrestling video games of today. And I just want to get your take on it because I feel with the WWE 2K series, doing a video game every year, as soon as one's released, they're already or maybe they're already working on the next one before the current one's been released. I feel like this is a massive problem as to why it's got so stagnant as far as I'm concerned, and that not much seems to change from game to game. And it's rich of me to say that because I haven't really played many of them, but this is just from my point of view, sitting here in the back seat. I just feel like you need a few years to work on a game to really make it special and make it stand out and make it be different. And when you're trying to get them to churn out a game once a year, I just feel like, again, it's kind of like the way that the WWE have treated their own product, where they've taken what's special away from it just to churn out and try and make that quick buck. What are your thoughts on that? And you know, do you convey with my thoughts?
No, I agree completely. And you know, the more content you do, if you want to do something new, it's going to take time. You know, but even back in the day, we were churning them out every year, and it was challenging, and not only challenging but exhausting. But I think one of the biggest problems is that there's no real competition. And I think that hurts as well. There's nothing making them take like the extra step on the next game. I also think that, you know, they're trying to go about it kind of a Madden way. And I don't buy every Madden year because it's the same thing. It's the same damn game. You know, they might have a flashy catch in there or something, but it's really, the reason people keep buying the Madden games is because there is a overwhelming difference in the rosters and different teams every year. But that's not wrestling. You know, it's not like that stat-based thing where you want, you know, like FIFA, you know, oh, my team got better, now I definitely want to get it, you know. But it's just not like that. And I just don't think the lack of competition hurts it, just like the WWE product on TV. It's just, I think it's done nothing but suffer since WCW went down.
I agree, bro.
You know,
I agree.
It's had highs and lows, but there will be nothing like there ever was with the Monday Night Wars.
Definitely.
You know, I don't see how they will ever get back to that again. I don't even think it's possible.
I think it's too far gone now, but hopefully AEW can spark some sort of response where they finally get their shit together and remove all of this red tape that stops them from actually being creative and doing right by their own company and doing right by the people they hire to, you know, invest their money into, you know, make them money. But anyway, away from that, you know, like that's a whole other conversation for another day. I guess a couple other questions before we get to my final segment. What was the favorite game that you've had the chance to work on over the years?
I mean, wow, that's tough. Probably Revenge, just because of where we were going heading at the time and the uncertainty of what it was going to become and seeing the success, but also along the way, just the grind, getting the game out and knowing what the competition was at the time. And, you know, just the time spent with the developer and just having fun making it. And, you know, I mean, really, that was like, the other games were successful, but I think this was the one that really changed a lot of things. I think that was my funnest moment, was working on that game. And then obviously when we got the WWF, WWE at the time, that was kind of a new thing, and we weren't sure how good that was going to be with the license, and that sort of panned out. It's like almost all of a sudden the momentum went their way from WCW, and we kind of jumped on board, and that was amazing. But yeah, I mean, all the games through those years, kind of the middle years while I was there, just fantastic.
Excellent, bro.
64 games were a blast, and early PlayStation stuff.
Yeah. So I'm guessing maybe your favorite team that you were a part of might have been that Revenge team, or was there another team that stood out to you?
Well, them and Ukes definitely were quite different, but in different ways. I like working with both, just the same. Different environment, totally different kind of kind of feeling in their building. But both very much huge fans and dedicated and hardworking and nonstop, basically. I mean, if not for them, I wouldn't be on here. I mean, they really did a great job on those games, and I miss them personally as well. They're just great people.
Cool, bro. A couple more before we get to our final segment. Do you have any regrets with any of the games?
Oh, I really wish I would have been on Nitro early, so we could kind of like pinpoint where the problems were and where they were going instead of just being thrown on it and really not having a choice, like basically thrown on to finish the game, I mean, I would like to see where we could have improved on that. I wish I would have stayed a little more involved with the GameCube games and the Xbox game. Yep. But at the time, I just had it, and I was done.
Yeah,
I had enough. I had the Pride game going on, and that was my pride basically at the time. So pitched and produced that, and that was a fight just to get them to pick up that license, and that's where I wanted to go. And I love that game. Working on that was a lot of fun, and just all the turmoil going on at the time, I was ready. I was ready to go.
When you're done, bro. That conveys with me quite a lot because I just quit my job a few weeks ago. Couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. That was it.
Oh yeah, you're finished and that's it.
Yeah. Do you have any features or match types that you wish you could have put in, but for whatever reason couldn't?
Oh, definitely barbed wire match, like exploding death matches, all that stuff. I mean, huge fan of all that stuff growing up, and I mean, what developers overseas got me into a lot of stuff. We had fun with that, and it's like, oh man, I want to do some of this stuff, but we couldn't do it because of WWF was like, no, we wouldn't even ask them, honestly.
I was going to say, did you even ask?
Yeah,
we wouldn't even be able to. I always wondered how awesome it would just be able to just, if WWE just wanted to have fun, I know they don't do death matches on TV. Just let people do them in video games. I know that in SmackDown vs. Raw 2007's trailer, they had light tubes, and they never made it into the game.
Yeah.
But a shame. I'm a massive fan of all that stuff too.
Yeah. All right, Sanders, we're getting to our final segment of the show. We're springing it on you right now. It's called 5 Second Frenzy. You got 5 seconds to answer each question. Even if you break the 5-second rule, it's okay. You won't get in trouble. It's just about your favorite this and your favorite that, to learn a little bit more about you, aside from, what we've been talking about most of this interview.
Sure.
So first one, right out of the gate here, who is your favorite wrestler?
Raven and maybe Hayabusa.
Excellent choices, bro. If you had to pick a match from the history of wrestling that would be your favorite match, what's the go-to?
Oh boy. Japanese stuff. Definitely Ultimo Dragon and Otani in the I think it was a 95 J Cup.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an insane match. I loved all those.
Yeah, they were tremendous. Okay. Getting away from wrestling now. What's your favorite book?
Oh boy. Maybe American Psycho.
Excellent. Favorite TV show?
Oh boy, that one's really hard. Geez.
You can pick a couple if you need to.
God damn, that was really tough because I watch a lot of stuff. I don't know. Right now, I'm really enjoying the Creep Show series that's going. I like a lot of horror TV, so that kind of stuff.
Yep, cool. Not to make it even more difficult, but favorite film?
Oh boy, Repo Man.
Oh, there you go.
I'm a huge film guy. I got maybe 1,300 Blu-rays. But that's the movie I could watch any time of the day, followed by Jaws and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Very good, very good. Favorite musical artist or band?
Oh, that's tough too. Anything old LA punk rock, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Bad Religion, that kind of stuff.
Excellent stuff. I like that stuff too, bro. And I'm entering a new one for the first time here, Jack.
Oh God,
because
this is unprecedented.
It's unprecedented because usually people we have on the show are past the age of 60 and a retired wrestler, and they don't play video games. So I'm entering a new one. And if we bring anyone on the show that's a current day wrestler, I know that the video games are quite popular with current day wrestlers. We will enter this with them as well. But favorite video game?
Oh my God.
I know. I'm sorry.
I don't even know the answer to this one for me. It's fucked.
Dig Dug.
What was that? Sorry?
Dig Dug.
Right. Okay.
I like the classics, man. And No Mercy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Getting away from the arts now. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Tacos.
Nice.
Good LA street tacos.
Sounds good right about now, nearly 2 a.m. Favorite place to eat on the road?
Favorite place to eat on the road? Oh boy. In-N-Out.
Nice. Jack, they have so many different options over there.
Right,
we've got fuck all here. I've been watching AEW the last 3 weeks. They keep on showing adverts for Popeyes. I'm like, God damn, I need to try those nuggets. Third last one here, Sanders, is favorite alcoholic beverage.
Oh boy. Well, definitely beer. But I'll drink anything from cheap piss, like malt liquor, to, I love craft beer, like double IPAs, everything, just beer.
Beer all the way. Excellent. The second last
Beer
one, Sanders, your favorite female body part. What's something when you check out a good looking girl? What do the eyes go to first?
The butt.
Nice.
We like that answer, bro. We like that answer. And the last one here on 5 Second Frenzy, Sanders Keel, what is your favorite curse word?
Jesus. That might be the hardest one. Fuck. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, fuck is if this was Family Feud, fuck would be the number one answer. Sanders Keel, we were so excited for weeks knowing that we made contact with you to have you on the show. And I already blew smoke up your ass earlier by saying how great you are, and everything that you're a part of creating was such a big part of my life, Jack's life, all of my mates. When I found out that I was going to have the chance to interview you, I told my friend Daniel Bonner, I told my friend Michael Fano, my oldest friends, I'm talking to the guy that was a part of making No Mercy Boys. And they're like, are you fucking serious? Awesome, man. Awesome. So like, they don't even know you. They don't know what you look like. They don't know your name. And you already mean so much to them. You mean so much to so many people because you're a part of this thing that I said earlier was in the fabric of the wrestling fan back in the day. And even people that weren't wrestling fans, they remember those games. So I want to say, as per usual, from the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia, that the reach that you have to come all this way to have people appreciate what you did, it's a huge thing. So we just want to let you know that you should be so proud of what you've accomplished, my friend.
Thanks, man. It means a lot to me. It really does. And I appreciate being on the show, and we can do it again sometime if you want.
Awesome,
absolutely, man. Bro. I've already got ideas, Jack, that maybe we should one time when we're streaming on Twitch, we should get Sanders to watch along whilst we're playing, and we can just have a bit of a laugh.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
Three-way match.
Let's do it. We can sort it. We can sort it out, man.
We can sort it. We can sort that out. Well, thank you again, Sanders. Really appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one. Get some sleep.
Thanks, bro. And thank you, Jack. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, California Fury, alongside my co-host, Jack Wallace, and our new friend, Sanders Keel. And we will see you next time. Thank you.